teachers, I love it. So my name is Lisa Maroni, and I'm from Embry, Riddle, Aeronautical University. We are the oldest aviation university in the country, so we deal with a lot of really interesting majors, which is partially why they're letting me talk to you about what some of those new areas of study will be. But first, they asked me to talk a little bit about financing and education. And I'm so glad that my colleagues already spoke about the idea of fit for students, because we know that fit is so important, and about trying to find a location that works really well for you, because that's really important. But we also know that some of your students might have different financial realities than others, and we want to make sure that we can help you help your students be successful. And so what I've mainly been talking about is different scholarship opportunities that students are able to take. For those of you with students who might have issues with finances or maybe not have as many resources, that's probably a big conversation that you're having. But in those almost 5,000 colleges and universities, we all have different scholarship processes, just like the application process. So one of the things that I encourage students to think about is the program that you're applying for what you really want to study? Is the place you're going where you really want to be? And thirdly, how are you going to afford it? So luckily, many of us do have different levels of scholarship offerings. At my institution, we typically give partial scholarships to students who've done well on some of those measures, like their grades and the SAT. Other institutions have different criteria for how they figure that out. And so I don't want to tell you too many things that you already know, but I always encourage counselors to talk to students about what does this really mean. The first thing that we notice at my institution is that students often confuse the terms between scholarships and financial aid, and they say, I want financial aid, and I say, that's great. Are you American? And they say, no, and I say, okay, well, we're not dealing with federal financial aid then. We're not filling out the FAFSA. I recently even had a student fill out the TASFA, the Texas version of FAFSA, and submit it to me. She was from Indonesia and very excited that Texas government was going to give her money. And I said, ooh, okay, that was a long form for you to fill out. I'm sorry that you had to do that, but that's not for you. And so advising your students a little bit about the difference between what's coming from the US government and what's coming from institutions can really help them to wrap their heads around where their sources of funding are coming. After that, I talked to them, what merit-based aid does the university have and how do you apply for it? My institution is small, so we are lucky to say, if you submit an SAT or ACT score that meets our minimum threshold, that is your scholarship application. You don't have to write an additional essay. Many other schools do have essay components to those applications, so I always encourage students when they're looking at applying, also look at what those scholarship application requirements are and maybe make a timetable or a spreadsheet to make sure that they're on time for those applications as well. And so after merit-based scholarships, there's also specialty scholarships that your students might qualify for. At my university, it could be if they're in robotics, if they're a woman student going into STEM. There's some aviation scholarships specific for students who are planning on flying at my school. And we are a small school. I've seen other schools who have dozens, if not hundreds, of these types of scholarships. So I'd encourage your students to think about their unique attributes and where they might be financially fruitful for them. I've seen students get very strange scholarships from wherever they've been endowed. And so I think first the merit-based scholarships, then special attribute scholarships. Of course, sports scholarships. Athletes often have a chance in some ways that students without that athletic ability don't have. And so I encourage them to look at what kind of financial backing they can get for those talents. And then we also suggest looking at third-party scholarship providers. So if they have, like me, I got a National Italian-American scholarship. And frankly, I am third-generation American, and I've never been to Italy, but my grandparents were really nice when they went to the club lunches, and they decided to give me a scholarship. So I'd encourage your students to look at those other attributes within their life that might help them, even if they don't realize that they have those skills. One thing that I always remember is there's over $1 billion in scholarship every year that don't go claimed. So when I was in high school, I knew that finances were a big concern, and I spent more time on the internet than I care to admit looking up what kind of scholarships were available to me, and I got them from a variety of sources for very strange reasons. Burger King gave me a scholarship, Comcast gave me a scholarship, and now mind you, I didn't eat Burger King and I didn't watch TV in high school, so thanks. And then Grandmothers for Peace, this little tiny organization out of Pennsylvania, sent me a scholarship for being in Model UN. And I wrote them a little letter about nuclear nonproliferation, and they sent me money. So those aren't as sustainable as institutional scholarships, but if students are really struggling to make it, there are other organizations that also want your students to succeed, and I'd encourage them to look at that. Maybe you can guide them in making a spreadsheet of what do I qualify and when are the deadlines, just like you do with applications. So to transfer over into STEM education, I assume you all know what STEM means. Will someone shout from the audience so I know you're awake? Yes, science, technology, engineering, and math. Thank you for playing along. At my university, we're almost exclusively STEM, which is really exciting, and also strange that they hired me, because I am exclusively liberal arts in my educational background. Thanks, Embry, Riddle. But it's been a really telling experience for me to learn all the new and exciting career opportunities that are opening up. One of the things that's exciting on our campus is UAVs, right? A lot of people call them drones, but this idea that we have students outside flying robots around that are doing interesting commercial applications that I'd never thought of in the past, like firefighting. They can go places that are too hot for firefighters to go. They're fishing, which I still find amazing. They can go out and find schools of tuna and then send the fishermen boats there. So there's interesting things that are happening that students might never have heard of because they've never happened before. There's other really exciting new things on the horizon. I just spoke with the CEO of Terrafugia, which is a car that drives, then flies, then comes back to the ground, pulls the wings in, and drives again. And they already have the prototype ready, and they're coming. And so in these new careers with drones, if you will, and that car would count as one because it's flying and it has controls within the car that will fly itself. We need over 700,000 new people to work with the FAA on how to regulate that in the next 2 years. So there's some really big fields, and I'd encourage you to maybe keep abreast of them, or if you hear something exciting that your students are doing, if they say, hey teacher, I really like hacking. Hey teacher, I really like something that you go, oh, what are you doing? There might be a really great new field for them, because even on my campus, we're teaching ethical hacking as a major in a burgeoning career field. So we know that you do great work with your students, and we're so excited that you're doing that. And we just want to encourage you to let your students know that there are great new fields. If their passion is video games, we might have a field for them. If their passion is something that's brand new and you've never heard of, they might be the next millionaire who endows money to your school. So we encourage you to just keep encouraging them. And if no one's ever asked your students if they're excited about a STEM field or they don't realize the math and science requirements to go into some of these exciting fields, to just let them know and encourage them that they could be the next Bill Gates or the next director of Terrafugia, who is a female student, which is very exciting for me. So here's your encouragement, both that we have money for your students and we have new places for them to go if they're excited about it.